My name's Adam Christion. I work at Sauce Labs. I guess my background is that I've spent the last 5 years trying not to do work and accidentally invented like 5 automation projects and contributed a bunch to a bunch of others. My first job out of college was working at the Open Source Applications Foundation as a manual QA, where they said, here's this thing, every time we're going to do a release, you need to click on a bunch of stuff and tell us that it worked. And I was like, there's no way I'm going to do that. So we went and looked at Selenium, couldn't get it to do a couple of things we wanted, so we built Windmill. Spent some time down working with the awesome folks at Mozilla. We started a project called Mozmill for automating the Chrome of Firefox and doing all kinds of crazy things that you probably shouldn't do. And since I left, that project's really taken off. It's doing some pretty cool stuff. So if you want to do Firefox, do strange and unnatural things, you should check out that project. At Slide, I worked on Flash apps. We had a manual QA team there, and I was like, they shouldn't do that. So we built FlexPilot, which you saw Joel's awesome demo. And off and on, I've been hacking on Selenium stuff. And in my free time, I've joined the sort of node evolution, and I'm building a JavaScript runner for lots of environments called Jellyfish, jelly.io. You can check that out if you want to. So you guys are already here. So most conferences I go to, I feel like I have to say, you guys should really do automation. It's awesome, and it's going to save you all kinds of time. But I don't have to spend 5 slides doing that here because it's already been done, right? But you've been at this conference for 2 days. At this point, you know it all. And this is the first time I'm not doing a technical demo. I'm just going to try to impart some things on you that I found very unintuitive that might help you guys in your day-to-day where you're working. These are the awesome bits of Selenium and beyond. And if you're not comfortable with those, there's plenty of people here that you should find afterwards, go get beers, and make them give you another like handheld walkthrough so you get it, because they're really powerful. Some things you may not know, though, is what is the best way to start an automation effort at my organization? If you already have this done, you're ahead of the game. That is awesome. If you don't, this is a little bit harder than you think. A lot of companies go out and they say, we want to hire this automation role, or we want to promote someone to take over this automation role. And that's really usually kind of an undefined thing, and it's not necessarily intuitive either, what that actually means. And there's a few things you can do to make this effort a little bit more successful, at least happen faster. Automation can be a disaster if it's done wrong. And what kind of expectations you can have, because a lot of people walk into an organization, they say, yeah, we need every OS, we need every browser, it's going to run every time somebody writes a line of code, it's going to be awesome. And then everyone is sorely disappointed. And how to get the best results. So I'm going to let you think about this for a second while I drink some water. Okay. So I've been hired as the guy to come in and be the automation lead. And if you come in and try to be a nice guy, no one is going to listen to you. And I don't mean that you should actually punch a developer in the face, per se. But it is fair to say that initially you're not going to be making any friends, because people see automators as someone who's going to come in and try to create more work for them. And manual QAs and manual QA managers just say, this guy's trying to eliminate my job, right? So we're very misunderstood, aren't we? So your role actually isn't to be an evangelist. Your role is to try to help people see the light. This room obviously is full of people who see the light, so what you guys need to do is go out there and help spread the word. As an automator, you need to know your app's guts as much or more than any of the other people working on it. I can't think of a moment when I went up to a developer and I said, I can't automate this div. And they said, well, I know you know the app better than I do. And that's just not something that happens. They think that, in general, automation people usually are expected to sort of follow along. but I really think we all need to be setting the way. When you start building a new application, get in there. I need IDs. I need this DOM structured in a way that's going to be reasonable for me to automate it. And I know you guys feel that pain. I really don't like the backlash. Okay, I'll just listen to my echo. So you want to involve everybody that you can. So we're at an awesome small startup, and even our CEO is on Olark answering people's questions about why Selenium IDE is broken or whatever. And I think the more people in the organization get involved and feel that, the more successful your effort's going to be. The next thing is, we don't want heroes and we don't want martyrs. So when you come into the organization, you should not stay up for 7 weeks writing a test and getting it to run in every browser and every platform, and then not telling anyone about it, getting ignored, and then disappearing. That's not successful, and neither is being a martyr. So you have to be strong and steady and keep pushing this movement forward. So if you don't have the opportunity to get the top-down sort of approach saying, we're going to make this effort, you have to go grassroots. And I've actually seen this be the most successful. So start with really small, reasonable goals. And start with really stable features. The more stable your automation is, the more people are going to believe that it's a viable thing. And keep track of your progress. When I was at Slide, I made an effort every Friday. I would send out an email to the entire company with statistics on how many bugs automation caught, how many browsers were running it in, and how many dollars we would have lost if this feature went live. I'll talk about the money path a little bit more. And I think everyone should build their own test framework. Windmill was a great learning experience. Jason with Selenium, Brett with Water, Simon with Selenium 2 WebDriver. You know, where would we be if people didn't go experiment? So for you to really understand the guts of this stuff, even if you're not going to use it in production, go build something that runs tests. And then you'll understand all these different frustrations and reasons that things are the way they are. And then my favorite one is that when something works and you catch a bug that saves your company money, celebrate. If you can, make them give you a budget so you can have a happy hour. Expectation setting is really important. So don't come in and say, yes, you can fire every manual QA because I'm going to replace them next week. That is not a reasonable expectation. There is no silver bullet. It's always going to be a battle. Making quality products is not easy. So it's always going to be a big effort by a lot of people. But you know, with some of these better tools and their improvements, you can make that less painful. Like I said, money path. If you're going to write one test, make it be your money path. Make it so that the second that a user can't pay you, you know about it and red flags go off. That is a really easy way to convince people that automation is important. And you want the least moving parts possible. I thought it was going to be a great idea. I have a whole bunch of VMs. Every day I'm going to run a bunch of updates on them. Well, if you have 20 VM images and you want to install a new piece of software on all of them and you don't have an automated way to do that, it's going to eat up your entire life. And when tests fail, you really want to know exactly why, and you need to know that quickly so that you can address it. So try to eliminate as many moving parts as you possibly can. So this conference has been in a lot of ways about tools. Automation is probably 50% about tools and 50% about lots of other things, but tools are obviously very important. So IDEs are bad. Write code if you can do it. If you can't do it, you should probably start learning to try. I understand the IDE thing. I spent years building IDEs to make test recording awesome, and I just released one last week. And so I am the first person to say that the idea of an IDE is awesome, and it's a really great place to help you get some progress. But ultimately, the power of testing is not in visual code, visual IDEs, it's in code. So you should go there. And having built my own testing tool and spent a lot of time at conferences telling everybody that Selenium sucks and that they should use mine, don't be religious, because technology changes, and it's really important for us to try to push in the same direction. And with Selenium 2 happening, it's really exciting for me to see those projects coming together. I may consider having Winwell interact in some way. We'll see. And less infrastructure is better. This is not exactly a Sauce Labs plug, because you can do this yourself in a lot of ways, but if you want to take automation seriously, I would not recommend you having 20 boxes sitting in a room in your office. It's just not scalable. But during the grassroots phase, it's full-on militia warfare. Do whatever you need to do. So at that point, I'd say that's probably all right. And don't reinvent the wheel. There's great projects for doing lots of things, and those people need help, especially if they're open source. I would really encourage you to fight that urge, unless, of course, you're building your own testing framework, to go help those people and try to move this stuff forward, because we need it. Results is obviously the way that we know that automation is doing what it's supposed to do. And if you're running that effort, you know what those results are, but most people don't. Like I said with my email, keep track of that stuff, generate some stats, send it out, have people know what you're doing. Be vocal, and I don't just mean walk around the office yelling at people, but pick a couple of people in the dev group and say, let's go to dinner and let's talk about this. Like, look at what I've done. How can I make this help you? Because you really want everybody on the same page. And I've seen a lot of people saying, well, tests don't really need to be in my version control system with my code. And I would argue that that's one of the most important things, because if you're doing any kind of test-driven development, and you can get developers involved, having a test that represents a feature is incredibly powerful. And you need everybody to have fair goals and measurements. So you're not going to say, we're going to automate our entire app this week. Unless it's tiny, that's crazy. Pick a couple of things that really demonstrate value and tackle those and see if you can get help. And probably the most important thing to me is community. So you've seen here, a lot of stuff is documented, but a lot of it is not. And I know that we all spend hours coming up with solutions for some of the same stuff. And that's incredibly frustrating. I know how it is. I should blog more. I don't. But I would say, as a group, we should all, if you spend more than 20 minutes trying to figure something out, tweet it, blog it, whatever. We need to keep building up that documentation base and making it ridiculously easy to figure out how to do things. I'd say with the Selenium 2 project happening, this is a really great time for us to kind of come together and say, we want all this knowledge to be just blatantly available. I guess we could kind of follow Mozilla's lead on some of that, because as an open source project, they have documented a lot. So we all need to understand that on an open source mailing list, we need voices. We're all trying to make this better. And so I know tones can come across as kind of not exactly friendly. People are very opinionated. People want this to work one way or the other. Try to remember that we're all moving in the same direction. I think I'm definitely guilty of that. And I think everybody should just really try to make the future of Selenium a friendly place to be a new developer. So here's a couple tips. Try to separate your tests out as much as you can. If you have flex tests, put them in their own directory. If you have UI tests, unit tests, all of that stuff, organize it so that you can easily find out where your problems are, what's going on, and so that you can break those apart and run them in chunks separately. So it's important for me to know if my unit test broke, specifically if one unit test feature affected a UI feature. And test organization can give you a really awesome indicator correlating directory feature names so you can track that stuff down. Try to integrate in your process. I know this is a battle that we all have. Sauce Labs, we care about testing more than anything, and sometimes the build just gets ignored. And someone will say, I need to push this, even though all the tests are broken. And then the next week we all go, okay, that was a major problem. We did this wrong. Let's circle back around and correct this. And I would stress that if you can get the rest of your organization involved with this effort, you should really do that. So when you get new people trying to write tests, a lot of them say, well, where's my IDE? And you can give them the IDE. But if you really want to be nice to them and prepare them for future stuff, what you should do is prepare some really awesome code examples in your Ruby or Python or whatever extraction you really like, and make that as simple as possible. Tear away any nasty XPath stuff from what they're going to see, put that in a library, and give them something dead simple. I think you'll find that people are a little bit more versatile than you think, and you'll be pleasantly surprised at the stuff that they come up with. I had a team of, I think, 5 people working for me in Russia who started with no automation experience. And I built out a little page object model, and I gave it to them, and a week later they came back and totally blew my mind. And the other thing is that running tests must be trivial. Developers do not want to spend 20 minutes trying to figure out how to run your automation tests. Give them a one-liner from the command line, give them a button on a web page. Do not expect them to spend extra time digging, because we're all busy. And if somebody writes a new feature and they say, could you run the automation before you check that in? I'm going to say, can you fit it into a tweet, or else I'm not going to do it. The other thing that we all need to remember is that Jason wore an awesome hat today to introduce me, and I really appreciated that. Automation is usually done by making software do things that it wasn't supposed to do. So by that very nature, we're all kind of crazy people. And I think that's what has been so awesome about this conference for me, is that it was the first time that I've been able to put a lot of faces to a lot of names and realize that there are so many people trying to do what we're trying to do. And most importantly, at the end of the day, if it still doesn't work, there is always beer. So I've been working on a couple cool projects recently. I should have done a lightning talk on Test Machine. One of them is Sauce Builder, which you shouldn't use because it's an IDE, but you can check it out. It's a webby interface on IDE. There's a project called Jellywish, which is a Node browser launcher. And then there's something called Test Machine, where I'm actually trying to introspect web pages using JS DOM and automatically build test suites, which is even worse, isn't it? Oh my God. But it's a cool project, and I think some interesting things can come out of that. So I just want to thank you guys so much, and I think this line at the bottom here kind of illustrates how you should be when you come into an organization. Officer, this guy is not waiting around for me, so you better shoot me or help me, but decide now. Jack Bauer. All right, feel free to get in touch with me. Thanks a lot.